What's up, everybody? My name's Pantsface, and today I want to talk about gearing as a Shadow Priest in the next phase with Trial of the Grand Crusader. Now, one thing I do want to say before we hop into it is that this might not be a BiS setup, and I do apologize about that. Now, why am I saying that? I'm not intentionally sharing any wrong information with you, but I'm just one person, and trying to sim every combination of gear, gems, and enchants is a tall order for anyone. So if you want a true BiS setup, I would wait until the Shadow Priest Discord does their simming competition, and they'll have the community come together and try to figure out what is the absolute top simming set. Now, the one thing about that is that the settings they use will probably be different than what I have here. So if you do compare sets that they use or that I have, just make sure that you have the settings lined up. Now, what I'm sharing today is I do believe to be the highest simming sets given my settings, but I just wanted to give that caveat that I might have missed something. And if I did, I really do apologize. I tried my best and I spent a lot of time just plugging in different sets to see what I could find. Okay, now with that out of the way, let's talk about next phase and some of the changes that are coming into it. So number one is that we have epic gems. Now, hopefully epic gems will be easy to acquire. On the PTR, you can currently get them using badges of justice and honor, and they're pretty cheap too. So if you've been saving badges or you have like a few thousand or a few tens of thousand honor left over, you should be able to fully kit out your character on day one. Now, one thing I will say about that is Blizzard has done it before where they put a vendor on a PTR, but when that PTR launches on patch day, that vendor is not actually in the game or it doesn't have the same items that it had on the PTR. So it's possible that we might launch and you might not actually be able to buy these. Hopefully you can because I'm stockpiling my badges just in case. But that's just something to note is that they have done this before. They will have something on a vendor, but that vendor won't have those items when that patch launches. So that's just something to keep in mind. But hopefully, we can just buy our gems and it'll be pretty cheap to do so. Secondly, is that there are three different item level variants of tier that we can get next phase: 232, 245, and 258. Now, the 232 and 245 variants are a little bit annoying to get because you have to get a token from the raid, plus you have to use badges that you get from the raid. So it's around 50 to 70 badges per item. So that could take a long time to get the enough badges to purchase your 4-set. Now, the thing that changes from original Wrath is that instead of being able to do Trial of the Grand Crusader 4 times per week, we can only do it twice. In original Wrath, you could do 25-man version twice, once on normal, once on heroic, and same for 10-man, once on normal, once on heroic. Now we can only do it once per difficulty. So on 25-man, you can only do it once, whether it's normal or heroic. So hopefully they just double the amount of badges that drop per boss, because if they don't, we'll be getting badges at half the rate of original Wrath, and it's just going to take a long time to get tier, which is kind of unfortunate. It's actually not bad for Shadow Priest because we don't want 245 tier, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. Now, talking about the 258 tier. This is the same way it is now. You just get a token from the raid, but that token has to be from 25 heroic difficulty. Now, when you clear the raid on 25-man heroic version, you automatically get 2 of these tokens. The nice thing about these tokens is that they're universal. They are not like a head slot or a glove slot. You can use it on any slot you want. It's still like Conqueror, Vanquisher, and Protector, but you can get any item slot that you want with it. Now, I said we get 2. We get 2 for clearing 25-man heroic. Now, the way Trial of the Grand Crusader works is that you have essentially a lockout system, or like a total number of wipes that you have before you cannot go back into the raid. So we start with 50 of these. If you wipe 50 times, your raid's done for the week. You cannot progress any further. But the more wipes that you have remaining when you clear the raid, the more bonus rewards you get from the tribute chest at the end. Now, if you have 45 or more wipes remaining, which means you've only wiped 5 times or less in the raid, you'll get an additional 2 tokens, which means at best for a 25-man heroic clear, you're getting 4 tokens per raid. Now, Trial of the Grand Crusader is probably going to be a shorter phase than what we've seen in Nax and Old War because Blizzard knows people don't really like this raid and it doesn't have as much excitement as Old War did. So it might be like a 16 to 18 week phase, which means for a guild that clears 25-man heroic, starting on week 1 and clears it every week after, you're only going to be able to gear out 16 to 18 of your raiders in full 258 item level tier. That kind of sucks. So I'm going to talk about a set Our BiS setup does use 258 tier, but I'm talking about another set where instead of using all 4 pieces, we only want 2 pieces of 258 tier. So hopefully it's the case that Warlocks and Paladins don't really want it, or we can try to finagle our way up into the priority. But I don't really know how Warlocks and Paladins feel about their tier, but it's just something to keep in mind that it is going to be really difficult to get 258 tier, especially 4 pieces. But if you're lucky enough to at least get 2, then you'll still be really well off for next phase. Okay, that's all I have to say about next phase. Now let's talk about the gear itself. So what I have here, hold on, let me sim this real quick. Okay, this is what I found to be the top simming set. Again, given the settings that I have here. Now, if you look, I'm a Draenei, so I play Alliance. I have a Horde version of this set as well. And the only difference is the wand. So instead of using the Rod of Imprisoned Souls, because we lose 1% hit going from Alliance to Horde, we use the Petrified Ivy Sprig, which we have from, well, which we hopefully already have from 10-man hard mode Freya in Ulduar. Now, going back to the Alliance set, you'll see that, like, I said the wand was the only item that changed, but you can see actually the bracers and the offhand change as well. Now, if you look at the offhand, so it has 100 spell power, 57 hit, and 57 crit. I go back here, 100 spell power, 57 hit, 57 crit. It's the same item, it just has a different name and a different cosmetic look. That's because Horde and Alliance have different items that have the same exact stats in this raid. It's just something they did for, like, an aesthetic to the raid. I think there's like a Horde version and an Alliance version of every single item. So the stats don't change. So just know when I do say that the items are the same, even if it looks like they change, I promise you they have the same exact stats. I just selected the Horde or Alliance one when doing the set, and I was too lazy to go and fix them all to be the same. So just want to note that. Now going back to this set, as I mentioned, we are using 258 tier 9 in every single slot. Now, why is that a problem? As I just mentioned, it's going to be really hard to get. The other thing is that this cloak is level 272, which is awesome. But remember how I mentioned that you get 2 extra tier tokens if you have 45 or more wipes remaining or attempts remaining in the raid when you clear it? Well, if you have all 50 remaining and you don't wipe whatsoever, then you'll get 1 272 cloak at the end of the raid. I believe there are 5 variants of the cloak that you can get, which means this item is going to be extremely hard to get. This is going to be the hardest item to get whatsoever. So, you know, whenever your top 5, your BiS list comes out, whatever it is, you have to make this your #1 priority. Unless you don't want to, which is fine. But it is not only just an extremely strong standalone item, it's the only item that is above 258 item level from this raid, and everybody's going to want their version of it. So do your best to try to get it. If you don't get it, it's not the end of the world. There is a 258 variant that you get in the same exact way, just from 10-man heroic. So you still have that option, which is going to be better than the Cloak off Algalon if you have that currently. Now there is a 258 version from the 10-man heroic raid if you clear that without wiping at all. So there is a lesser version of it. Hold on, phase 3. So this is Aetha's Intensity. Is it, which one? I guess this is the Alliance version. Okay, here's the Horde version. So Drape of the Sunreaver. So same statted item, just 258 instead of 272. You're going to want one of these cloaks, so do your best to try to secure that. Now this is the DPS that I'm getting, around 11,300. I'm going to save this as a reference, and I mentioned that Shadow Priests don't want 245 tier. Well, why would that be? So let me go to my 245 Alliance set here. And so some of the items are different because you lose about 1% haste switching from 258 to 245 tier. But let's see how it sims. So it sims at about, what, 300? Almost exactly 300 DPS less than what the 245, or I'm sorry, the 258 set simmed at. But I'm going to show you another set now. Now this is all the same BiS items. Okay, maybe actually a few different BiS items, but it's using tier 8 instead of tier 9. And this is why we don't want 245 tiers, because now let's save this set as a reference. You can see that this tier 8 set is actually simming higher than the 245 tier 9 set. So if you can't get 258, you just want to use tier 8 instead. Now, this can be seen as a good thing and as a bad thing, because you could take tier off of your priority list going into next phase. You're going to be like 270 DPS below BiS, which isn't great, but it's not the worst thing in the world if you can, like, for example, prioritize this cloak, which is going to be really difficult to get. Now, I'm not saying that's worth it. And I did mention that there's another set where we get two 258 pieces. So let's talk about that. So the second highest set that I found is, let me find it in here. My naming conventions are terrible. Okay, here, double two-piece. So this one, we use the two-piece bonus from tier 9 at 258 item level and tier 8. So you can see this is like the helm that we have currently, and then I have the cloak from tier 8 as well. And then I have the shoulders from tier 9 and the pants from tier 9, both at 258 item level. Now, let me sim this. You can see this is about 50 DPS lower than the full tier 9 set that I simmed before. I think this is probably going to be like our realistic BiS for next phase. You know, if you're in a raid that does, or a guild that does a lot of splits, then you're probably going to be able to get your full 4-piece tier 9 and you won't have to worry about this. But I think for a lot of people who, you know, you're in a guild, you raid once a week, you're just hoping you can get the items by the end of the phase, this is going to be your realistic BiS. Now, 50 DPS really isn't that much. It's 0.5% when we're talking about like doing 11.3k. So it's not that big of a deal. And I would really stress that, where if you can help your priority on other items by only getting two pieces of 258 tier, then I think it's definitely worth it. Especially if you can get higher priority on this cloak. Reign of the Dead is going to be an extremely strong trinket. It's actually just about as strong as Flare of the Heavens. Now, I'm not sure if every caster wants this. I think most of them do. Maybe Affliction Warlocks don't. I think they might want Scale of Fates instead. But I'm not positive on that, so don't take my word. I'm speculating. So that's just, those are the sets that I found. So essentially what we really want is either a full tier 9 set, which, here, I'll save this as a reference and sim this again. It's about 50 DPS higher than the double two-piece set. So this is what I found to be our BiS for next phase. And then I'll just switch to Horde real quick because I haven't shown anything that's Horde yet. So Horde, remember, the only thing that changes is this wand. And I will set myself to a troll. And we resim. And so you can see it's about 130 DPS higher. Oh, because that reference is using the double two-piece. But it's about 130 DPS higher than the Alliance set. So, you know, I wish I was a troll, but unfortunately I'm not. Now down below, I will have, in the video description, I will have Horde variants of the double two-piece. I don't think I have one saved here, but I will make that and make sure it's down there for you to check out as well. So those are the sets. Now, what I would talk about next is really just what do we want to prioritize? And I think a lot of that's really going to depend on how much of your Ulduar BiS you have coming into this phase. So if you have full Ulduar BiS, then that means you have Flare, you have Nebula Band, you have Conductive Steel, you have Pharaoh's Gloves, you have Petrified Ivy Sprig. You already have 5 items that you don't need to worry about in next phase, which helps your priority on other items because you just don't need to worry about getting rings or you know, one of your trinkets, gloves. You know, let other people fight for those items while you just go and take everything else. Now, I know not everybody's going to come into this phase with every item, but like, let's just talk about what are the strongest / hardest items to get. As I already mentioned, this cloak is just going to be contested by every single person. Like if you raid once a week, if your guild doesn't do splits, if you're not in the top 3 or 4 people to get this cloak, you might not get it at all this phase, which isn't the best thing in the world, but I don't think it's the worst thing either. So let's do a quick reference check between this and the 258 version. So if you can get the 10-man heroic version, you're losing about 70 DPS, which kind of sucks, but it's also not the worst thing in the world because this is still going to be stronger than if you're using the Sun Glimmer cloak from Algalon in 25-man. So I think the cloak is something that you definitely want to try to prioritize. But if you're finding that you're just like outside the top 3 to 4 and you only raid once a week, then you're probably not going to get it. You definitely might be able to. Obviously, luck plays a huge factor into how many of these cloaks drop versus the other cloaks. But it's just really something to keep in mind. Just trying to look at, you know, averages and what might happen. Now, another really strong, just standalone item is Misery's End. So this is a mace, and there are two other caster weapons, or caster one-handed weapons in Trial of the Grand Crusader. One is a dagger and one is a sword. Obviously, we can't use the sword, but mages and warlocks are going to want that sword. So that leaves this and a dagger, and the dagger is the Blade of Tarask or Tarasque. I don't know how to say it. Doesn't really matter. This thing has hit on it, so in our best setup right now, we don't need that hit. So we want to go with Misery's End, which has haste, crit, and spell power. And hopefully this item isn't too contested, because I know, at least in my guild, we're going to have a decent amount of healers who already have a Valenier, so they're not going to want this. And then it's really just me competing with a Boomkin and an Ellie Shaman, and we don't even have an Ellie Shaman, so it's literally just me competing with a Boomkin. So I might not even need to like prioritize this. I might just get it because nobody else needs it. So that's really nice, and I think that should be true for most raids, assuming you've been, clearing Ulduar every week so far. As I mentioned, Raiden of the Dead is an extremely strong trinket. And I did see some talk in Discord just about people just like wondering, is this actually that good? They were talking about, is this, Shard of Flame proc? Like, it seems kind of weak. But just to do a quick reference, let's go back to the full Horde set here, sim this. What happens if we put in Scale of Fates, which would be our third best trinket? Let's just look at how our DPS drops. Okay, actually, I thought it was going to drop more. It only dropped by 57 DPS. So, I thought it was gonna be a lot more. Maybe that's just a difference in Horde and Alliance, or maybe I'm just dumb. But so it's only 57 DPS, better than Scale of Fates, which I thought it was actually more like 100. But that means if you already have Scale of Fates, then Reign of the Dead is definitely a superior trinket. And again, I'm not sure if like Affliction Warlocks are going to want it, for example. But it's definitely a really strong standalone item. Now, let's talk about like Ulduar gear and, if you don't have it, how you can replace it. So let's start off with Pharaoh's Glove. So what's interesting is that this is our BiS at a 252 item level. There's actually an item which is 258 item level and statted the exact same way. And it's funny that it's not our BiS. For some reason, just the way the stats line up, these gloves have 9 extra spell power, but you lose a bunch of haste and crit rating, which basically just makes them worse. Like, spell power is great, but the fact that we lose, how much? We lose 13 crit rating and 9 haste, which just together, 21 of any kind of rating is going to be much stronger than 9 spell power. So the fact that every caster probably, I think, is going to want Pharaohs instead of these means these 258 gloves might actually be pretty uncontested. So if you don't have Pharaohs coming into this phase, these are going to be a really, I'd say really, but it should be a fairly uncontested item to get that's basically just the exact same as Pharaohs. Yes, they're slightly weaker, but at like 20 DPS. So really not a huge deal. Next up, let's talk about the boot slot. So these boots are actually just a 6 item upgrade from Boots of Fiery Resolution. So if you already have these boots, getting these is not like such a huge upgrade. So this is one of those slots where, since we're just getting a 6 item upgrade of the same exact stats, if you already have the Ulduar BiS, this isn't an item that you need to prioritize, because similar to like the difference between Pharaoh's Gloves and that other pair, the DPS gain here is not that large. So this isn't an item that I would try to prioritize. And I think the other items that are similar to that are the Offhand, where Talisman of Heedless Sin is just a better version of Cosmos. Now, Cosmos is a really contested trinket and kind of hard to get. So if you don't have Cosmos, then this is going to be an extremely important item for you to get. But if you do have Cosmos, then don't worry about this Offhand, or at least not immediately. Like, you definitely want it by the time the phase is over, but there are way more pressing items for you to get. A similar item to this is Bindings of the Ashen Saint. So a 258 haste spirit wrist, where it's just a better version of Grasps of Reason. So again, these 3 items, if you already have Ulduar BiS, don't worry about prioritizing these. Try to get the items that are just a much larger increase over the current item that you have. So the thing about Misery's End that I did not mention is that this is replacing an item that has hit on it. And this is where we get into a weird spot with hit versus non-hit items, is that as you're replacing items with hit, if you lose too much hit, you can't actually use the upgrade that you got. A similar item in this vein is Wail of the Valkyr, this 258 neck piece, where If you have Ulduar BiS and you have Fiery Havoc, then you're going to be losing a lot of hit. If you don't have Fiery Havoc, then this is just a direct upgrade over whatever neck you're using, unless you're still using like the 226 Malagos neck or the Saffron neck. That's a different story. But just if you're using, Pendant of the Shallow Grave, Sapphire Amulet of Renewal, Watchful Eye of Fate, then this is just a direct upgrade over those. But if you have Fiery Havoc, then you kind of have to maneuver some hit around before you can actually swap to this neck. So when it comes to the items that are upgrades, it's really important that you understand how your hit might be affected as you're like ranking the gear for next phase. An item that is kind of a direct upgrade, but a little bit better than that, is Chord of Tenebrous Mist. So this would be replacing Star Watcher's Binding, which was Crit Spirit, and this one was Haste Spirit. So haste is generally a better stat. Like all things being equal, if we have the same amount of haste and crit, we're in that circumstance, we almost always want more haste. So this should be a stronger than 6 item level. Like if you think about like how the boots were just a direct 6 item level upgrade, this is going to be a little bit stronger than that if you have Star Watcher's Binding. But something that I will say, and this is actually true for boots too, is that there's a 258 version of a belt that has hit on it. So this is it. So it's hit and crit, which isn't the best. But if you need an item to hold you over that shouldn't be too contested, this could be an item you can go for as you're trying to swap around and maneuver your hit. Another item, I believe, are Boots of the Icy Flow or Footpads of the Icy Flow. So this is a hit haste boot, which, again, if this item drops in your raid and you're trying to figure out how to balance your hit, 258 item level of still really good stats that will allow you to maneuver your gear until you get your full BiS setup. Now, I believe a lot of hit comes from so the tier pants for tier 9 give a ton of hit, 102. So if this is going to be an item, so as you get your tier, this might be the first item you want to get, assuming you're lacking hit. If you're not lacking hit, then go for the chest. But it's this weird meta game as you're gearing through a phase where you're just wondering, how do I juggle all this hit? How do I balance it? What's the optimal setup? And all I can say is just make sure you never disenchant any gear. Like I still have the offhand from Patchwork surplus limb because I have a Dying Curse right now, and when hopefully when I replace that with Flare of the Heavens, if I haven't gotten a Cosmos yet, then I'm actually going to want to use the surplus limb to get some hit back. So it's just like the more items you have in your bank, the more flexibility you have when it comes to these types of situations. And I think for this phase, it's definitely going to be really important that you're making sure that you can just balance out your hit in any way that you can. So similarly, like with Nebula Band, so this is a 239 ring. If you happen to have the ring that drops off of hard mode Flame Leviathan and 10-man modes, Shimmering Seal, this would be a great alternative to replace your Nebula Band with as you're increasing or as you're getting upgrades that replace hit items. So just any items that you have that have hit on them that are a decent item level are always a good thing to keep. And this phase is going to be a bit of a struggle until you have that full BiS setup. Anyway, I think I covered anything. I felt like I was rambling a bit about the different gear and like priority and everything. Feel free to let me know if you have any questions, comments, concerns in the comments section, because I hope I didn't miss anything. I tried to cover everything that I thought was important that I would want to know. And yeah, if there is anything that I got egregiously wrong, I will definitely do a follow-up video and correct that. And maybe even remove it from this video. I don't want wrong information circulating if it's like blatantly wrong. If it's like, oh, well, you missed a gem here, not the biggest deal in the world. Or if it's like, maybe instead of 15 spirit on the chest, it's 10 stats. Not a huge deal. But if it's like, oh, this item should be this other item, that's kind of a big deal. Anyway, that's all for this video. I hope this helps you. Feel free to reach out. And again, comments, Discord, if you have any questions. Anyway, my name's Pantspace, and I'll see you in the next one.
Find shelter.
Oh no! No! I did it too early. Oh no. Oh fuck! Oh my god! We're gonna die. I dispersed too early and it came off.